Okay, now we're going to talk about the new Dune. Dune was about a prince who was sent to a desert planet, basically Tatooine, kinda. Not really. Where it's basically ruled by a bunch of different tribes of nomads, but they're just coming there to get the spice, which is basically this drug that. But it's the most important mineral or whatever it is in the galaxy. It's the most important substance in the galaxy. Not only is it a drug, it also like fuels their ships or something. I don't know. I was a little confused by that. But anyway, this prince goes there with his mother, and they both have this power they call the voice. And if you do it right, you can order people to do things, and they'll follow your command no matter what it is. But he's still learning. The prince is. I don't know anyone's name, and I've never read the books or anything, and so I kind of got the feeling this was a movie made for the people who were like big fans of the books. But I'll get to that in a second. There's this like huge battle, and they get captured, the queen and her son, and they have to use the voice to escape by making the guards basically just kill each other and free them at the same time. But then they crash land, they get trapped under this huge sand dune. They have this technology that lets them spin their way out, like it spins the sand. But then they run into this tribe of nomads. Oh, and the entire time the prince has been having these visions of this young girl, and he finds her in these nomads. And then they prove themselves to these nomads, and basically the queen becomes their leader, and that's where the movie ends. That was the whole movie. In a nutshell. 2.5 hours of just like that. About that much story. I guess that kind of segues into this film's problems. Well, I felt that this was like something if I had read the book, I probably would have enjoyed this movie a lot more. It just felt like there was a lot going on, and like so many characters, and outside of the prince and his mom, which were introduced to you in the very first scene, and you see them right away, and you're like, okay, I understand these people, but then it just kept cutting away over and over again to like, and here's some other people that you don't know who they are, and here's some other people you like, they're doing stuff too. And here's Poe from Star Wars. Oh, he's about to die or something. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that is just happening less seemingly at random. And then, but like every time it cuts back to the prince and his mom, then it's like, oh, I understand what's going on again. I can follow their story at least. But everything else is like really hard to follow. And that's another problem is that most scenes with dialogue are just incredibly boring. And I understand that this is like the first movie, I guess, in like what might be a very long series, because I think it was like 15 books, and this is only the first half of the first book. I read it was 15 books or something. I don't know, because I've never read it, so I don't actually know. I just looked that up. But being that this is the first movie of what could be a long series, like there's definitely a lot that they have to explain and set up right away, and they do a good job of some of that. You know, like I really liked when he was studying things on this holographic computer thing. I was kind of explaining some of the stuff that way, and that was interesting. But like most of the time when it's just like one person explaining to the other person what's going on, I'm just bored. And I think part of that is that like everyone's acting in this way that's like kind of alien. And I mean, like, technically they are aliens, but it's like just really dry for the most part. There's like not a whole lot of emotions between any two people, outside of a few parts. But because of that, everything's really dry and emotionless, and because of that, I don't get very emotionally involved. Like, even with the main character, I kind of felt like I was just watching him instead of, like, realizing his story and sympathizing with him because of it, like you would do with any other main character in any other story. I mean, like, Luke Skywalker, we know everything about, but, you know, in the first, like, 20 minutes of the movie. For Star Wars, I mean, The New Hope. But here it felt more like I was watching a bunch of aliens acting in a way that would probably please aliens, I guess. But why would you be making a movie for aliens? Maybe this movie's for the lizard people, for the shape-shifting lizard people that secretly run the world or whatever. I feel this movie does two things very well. And that one thing is like making the action and the more action-oriented scenes very dramatic and tense. For the first 45 minutes, like basically nothing happens. I mean, there's stuff happening, but it's like really slow and boring. But then like this battle breaks out and people invade, and then it's like suddenly suddenly I feel alive again while watching this movie. And because like there's a lot of action after that, like the rest of the movie I think is basically saved because they do the action really well. That was something I was very impressed with. Especially the big battle sequence, like I said, that 45-minute mark, or however, might not have been right then. But as soon as that happened, like, there was definitely a huge shift in tone that was only beneficial for the movie. Things became a lot more tense, like I said, and I began to care about the characters some. They still had kind of that alien quality, but it was more forgivable then, you know? And the other thing this movie does really well is, or like set a scene, like show like really epic things of epic proportion, and like really make you feel like you're there on this alien world with them. Oh, and there were like these things called sandworms that were just humongous, these humongous snake things that just would pop out and sometimes like just swallow things beneath them and just pull it all down into them, into their gaping maws. And at one point they have to save like 21 people off this sand rig or whatever you would call it, or what do they call it? A spice rig. And like the thing is humongous. It's like an oil rig on the sand, you know, it's humongous. And they have to fly down with these like these dragonfly spaceships, or they're kind of like helicopters actually, dragonfly helicopters, in order to rescue these people, and like they just barely get them out before like the thing just swallows this whole like oil rig sized thing into its giant mouth. But it was kind of funny because like I keep seeing like similarities between this set of Oscar movies and the ones from the first Academy Awards. And this one, like the similarity I feel was like a lot of like showiness. Because I was saying how like back in 1929, movies were still fairly new. Like maybe, well, the very first American-made feature-length film I think came out in 1914. They were just getting like widely available across the country by this time, or by 1929 I mean. So they were still a fairly new thing, and having that like showiness, or like just being like just panning around like this really amazing set to set a scene, or doing things like that was like very commonplace, because just being able to see these things on the screen for the first time was as much a draw as anything else for people to come and see the movie. And it kind of felt like that, just being like, oh, look at how giant this palace is, or look at how massive these dunes are, look at how huge this worm is, or whatever, you know, which just wasted time, and I found kind of boring at first. But by later in the movie, when it was like showing you these awesome things while, say, a huge battle was going on, that was a lot better. Or when they were saving those people and the worm like ate everything, that was another one that was like really cool and like story oriented, not just like the first 45 minutes. It felt like every other scene was just like, let's have this slow moving pan across this scene that's probably just CGI anyway. But the stuff did look pretty epic, to be fair. Do I have any other problems or compliments? Oh, there was a lot of stars in this one, and most of them I kept being like, oh, well, Aquaman's in it. Poe, like I said, from Star Wars. And there were a few others. I can't remember them now, but I just... Oh, Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. And I was just like, how many superheroes / Star Wars people are in this? It's probably more than I'm forgetting, like I said, but I just thought that was kind of funny, I guess. It's not really a compliment or a minus or anything. It just happened. But considering like most of the actors were like pretty famous, like the acting really wasn't that special or anything. It seemed like one of those scenarios where maybe the studios realized the script was lacking and thought like, well, if we hire enough talented actors, maybe that will put it up a notch or two. But I don't think it did, personally. Because I didn't, like, the acting really wasn't that special. Like, the only time I really felt for any of the characters was in that nomad tribe at the end, and they were still, like, fairly kind of alien. I hope when they make a sequel to this, like, they do something to humanize some of the characters, just to make me feel something for them. And also, like, if the problem is really just that I should have read the book first, I mean, then you shouldn't have made this movie. You should always make a movie what it is first and foremost. You should never be like pandering to people who read the book, I guess. Just like a movie like this needs to be enjoyable to both audiences, both people who are like big fans of the books or people who, like me, who are possibly new fans. This movie I don't think was good enough to make me go like, oh, I should read the book now or anything. It didn't like drag me into it. I thought it was a cool action sci-fi movie. It had a lot of really good special effects. But I would say that's probably the biggest draw of the film, is that the special effects were cool and the action was cool. I wouldn't call this like an epic space thing that I hope goes on to make a bunch of sequels or anything. But I would say it's a pretty entertaining film, minus maybe the first like 30 minutes to 45. So let's figure out what I'm going to rate it. I mean, the action was all really good, and as an action movie, I think it would pass. You know, I'd say like good job, but I would say it just passes pretty much as that like as this, but like I don't really see it as like a space opera, this epic tale just waiting to be told or whatever. I'd see it more as just being like a fun way to spend an evening, you know, and then just forget about it because it didn't really do anything that I haven't seen done better elsewhere. Except maybe like a couple of the special effects, maybe. Like especially with like that sandworm thing, like I mentioned, when it swallows this like tanker-sized thing in the middle of the desert. That was pretty cool. But I'd probably only recommend this to super fans of the book, really. I think they would probably get the most enjoyment out of it, unless it like totally ruins that too. Got everything wrong? I don't know. For someone like me who knows next to nothing about Dune, this didn't really do a whole lot for me. But as an action movie, I'd probably rate it 7.5 as like entertaining enough. But then I'd probably subtract a point for just being so boring for the first like 45 minutes or so, and for all the dialogue to be really lacking. And I might subtract another point for not doing enough to make me care about any of these characters. That one, I'll just do half a point for that. Because being it's an action movie, I feel like characterization, it doesn't always have to be that important. You should at least care about the main character at least. I mean, if you don't know who he is at least, it's kind of meh. That's kind of how I felt by the end, just kind of meh. But yeah, I'll say 6 out of 10. That sounds like a fair grade. So I'm all about being fair. I go thumbs upping things again. Alright, that's it for today. So please like and subscribe, and I'll keep covering the Oscar movies until the Oscars, before I run out. Alright, see you next time.